In this video, we'll be looking at doing some further problems using the sine and cosine rule. These aren't the trickiest problems you can get, but they're just variations of what we've done in the previous video, which is relatively routine questions. They're just giving you what's the unknown length of this or the unknown angle for both sine and cosine rule. Now in this case, you might need to use Pythagoras' theorem, or you might need to draw out a diagram first before solving, and we're going to look at those two situations here. Or it's a multi-step. You need to use Pythagoras twice, or use a combination of right-angled trig and non-right-angled trig. So in this question here, it says solve the triangle ABC, given that AB is of length 6.2 centimeters, AC is of length 7.1, and angle A is 35 degrees. So with these, they might say draw a diagram to represent the situation. They might even give it a mark. And let's just draw out something. And these don't have to be too accurate. Let's go ABC, right? I'm just literally just drawing a normal triangle, and it's probably going to be wrong, but that's okay, it's just a diagram. So we've got triangle ABC. If they said PQR, make sure you go PQR. Given that AB is of length 6.2 centimeters, and you can tick this off as you go. AC is of length 7.1 centimeters, and angle A is 35 degrees. Oh, it's actually worked out, looks relatively to scale, so I'm sort of happy with that. Now it says solve this triangle, given that AB is of length 6.2, AC is equal to 7.1, and angle A. So I'm not quite sure exactly what they're angling at here, but how about we say what's the side length of BC or CB? So if they need to figure out that, so let's just say that that's what they want. Let's call that X, right? So CB. We have to consider, are we going to use sine or cosine rule here, or right angle trig or Pythag to help us solve this? So we've got to choose between all our different weapons or tools to solve for X. Now, firstly, it's not right angle, right? So we can't use right angle trig or Pythagoras. So that means we're going to have to use non-right angle trig. So it's either sine rule or cosine rule, because we're finding a side length. And here we can see we've got a side, the corresponding angle, and the corresponding side. So this is definitely pointing at that hand rule that we looked at in the previous video. So we're going to be using cosine rule. So if we're using cosine rule, this is small a, this is small b, and this is small c, and we're going to use our a formula. So a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine a. Sub in our values, x squared is equal to okay, and this one you don't even need to rearrange. You can just type this all in, take the square root, and you get your answer. So we get this answer popping out. Make sure, remembering this is x squared is equal to all this, so you need to take the square root of that. And you get x is equal to 4.09 centimeters. You can even draw that in the diagram if you like. And then we just do our sanity check to make sure we haven't done anything wrong. If this is 35 degrees, then we know that this side's going to be quite small in comparison to these sides. So we can see that this is smaller indeed than 6.2 and 7.1. Now I'm going to move on to the next question here. And you can pause the video if you want to have a shot at this first to see if you're on the right track. So we need to find out angle X. So you can work two ways in this. You can either work from the variable that way, or you can go the other way. I like to work from the variable to figure out what tool I need to solve. Okay, so I've got X here. It's in a non-right angled triangle. So when we're looking at these problems, I want you to consider all the things, no matter how much they all smack it all together, just consider them as separate entities that happen to be adjoining. Okay, so let's use the old West Coast colours here to represent the two triangles. Okay, and sometimes they're embedded in another bigger triangle. In this case, we've got a non-right angled triangle highlighted in yellow, and then a right angled triangle highlighted in blue. So we have to consider what tools do we know to help us solve unknown sides, angles, etc. We're not given an area or anything, but we are given a side length, unknown angle, and we have this information here as well. Now, to work out x, what do I need? Well, I've got an opposite side. I have an adjacent side. Now, if I can work out an angle here or an angle here, or sorry, an angle here, I can use my sine rule because opposite angles. But I don't know that angle. If I work out the side length, then I can use cosine rule and solve the angle that way. Now I know that which one's easier to find, that angle or this side length. Well, I've got 85 as my hypotenuse, 51. This is an easy Pythagoras. So let's use Pythagoras to find out this side, and then we're going to use cosine rule to figure out the angle x. Now, if you're not sure what to do on these, you get stuck. Just put in as much as you can. Just figure out whatever you can, and you'll eventually get there anyway. So let's figure out, I have hypotenuse here, okay, and I'm just going to call that, so if I call that A, B, and C, we're going to call this small b. So let's figure out that hypotenuse. We know Pythagoras is, to find the shorter side, is going to be, b squared is equal to the hypotenuse minus the shorter side. So 85 squared minus 51 squared, okay. And let's go 85 squared minus, and then we can go 51 squared. And we get an answer of that, but we need to take the square root of that to find b. So b is a nice clean number of 68. Okay. Now what we can do is we can assign that variable, but since it's a nice clean number, we don't have to. Now we need to figure out this, and we can write in our diagram this is now 68, and we know this is small a, small c. Let's use cosine rule. So we've got a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine a. Sub in our values. A is 79 squared. We're going to be solving for this is equal to b squared, which is 68. Given that x has to be, okay, so we're going to be typing this in. So shift equals 79 squared is equal to 68 squared plus 83 squared to and there we go, we get an answer of x is equal to 62.16 degrees, the nearest degree, 62 degrees. Okay, so here's some ideas on how to apply, firstly, a worded problem, and also how to do like a multi-step trig problem using cosine rule and sine rule and other rules that we have learnt before. Hope you enjoyed the video.